And we are on. Hello, hello. Before starting with our introduction today, I do have a question for our audience. And the question is, have you ever waited for the perfect moment to talk to someone? Welcome to the Mindset Lounge. You are here with Raluca, Pricop, and
I am Sally, and this is the Mindset Lounge. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. It really means a lot, the support you are giving us, and it also well done for taking time for yourself on listening or watching to us, whether that's on YouTube or on Spotify. And we hope you're enjoying that time for you. And back to your question, Raluca, yes, and unfortunately, yes.
yeah, I think
Today's
we all did.
topic is revealed already now. We want to talk to you about perfectionism. What do you think, Raluca, would be a simple definition?
I think we are looking at two aspects here. The need to be or appear perfect, and the belief that perfection is achievable. That would be my definition. So basically, someone who tries to achieve perfection in every aspect of their lives, like work, relationships, personal development, would or can be classified as a perfectionist.
I want to add to that. I think I have three words that go with when I hear the word perfectionism that goes with it. One, it's a label, because you're labeling yourself. I'm a perfectionist, or he's a perfectionist. And we have to sometimes be very careful with labels. It's a strength. If it worked for you and you're a perfectionist, okay. It's a skill, strength in you. And it's also a decision. If you say, I want to be perfect, or I want to do this perfectly, then you are taking a decision to change whatever you're doing or thinking of to become perfect. And as Raluca said, it does affect us in a lot of areas in our life, relationship, work. It affects us a lot. So perhaps shall we start by looking at the pros and the cons of perfectionism?
Yeah. To be honest, I don't see any pros here. Being one of those for a very long time, I could only see the way it kept me stuck.
Tell me more about that.
I used to be a perfectionist, and this affected me in many ways, especially in that waiting for the perfect moment, for the perfect person, for whatever. And it affected me because I was overly criticizing myself.
That's harsh.
Yes, in almost every action, I was my worst critic. Obviously, this came along with a very strong fear of failure. Whatever I was doing, what if I fail? Next one was, what would people say? How they perceive me if I'm not perfect? And yeah, the fear of making mistakes. I said I was a perfectionist because this doesn't happen anymore. I find it funny now. My old version of me wouldn't have recorded this podcast for countless reasons. One of them being my English accent, for example. That would have been something that would have kept me from doing the podcast 5 years ago.
Which takes me to the con. Well, you didn't have pros, but per the dictionary, let's say it's growth. If you're a perfectionist, and as I said, it's working for you, you're succeeding, you're growing, and that's a natural process if it's working for you. But going back to what you just shared, Raluca, it sounds like a major con is procrastination.
Oh, yes. I think is maybe the strongest outcome of being a perfectionist.
You're waiting for the perfect moment, for the perfect person, and you're just wasting time.
Yeah. You're waiting for yourself to get better at something, whatever that something is. And perfect is not really achievable. It's a concept. It never proved to be real.
I remember the recent incident with me for when I felt a bit like a perfectionist was
Mm.
when I wanted to submit the coursework, for the coaching course that we did. I was delaying it because I was tweaking and changing a lot of things that maybe weren't that necessary, but took me way longer to submit because I just wanted it perfect. And not only procrastination comes with that, but time management. Like I have taken so much longer to finish a piece of work because I wanted it perfect, where I could have possibly done something else maybe with it, with that time, or practice something different, just had a break, whatever it is. But yeah, it waiting for that moment, as you said, it might never come. So procrastination and time management are huge cons for perfectionism.
Yeah, I would like to ask you something. How did you feel postponing the submission of your paperwork? How did you feel?
Honestly, I felt so suffocated, like, because I knew I could see the finish line. I knew I was that close, but something kept holding me back. And it was another thing that affected me was stress. So with that, not only I've wasted time, I don't want to call it wasted because it was to produce a good thing, but it took me longer time and it delayed my submission, but it only also caused me real stress because I just wanted it perfect. It caused me physically and mental stress.
Yeah, it brings a lot of dissatisfaction because we tend to focus on flaws, what's not okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
How can you
You've mentioned
improve that?
something, sorry to interrupt you. You've mentioned something that you were criticizing yourself a lot.
Yeah. It
Which takes me to
basically,
the root.
yeah, it kept me from seeing my progress. I couldn't see it. It doesn't mean that I wasn't progressing. I just couldn't see it because I was focusing on those flaws, which are normal. I mean, who's perfect? Nothing is
Yeah.
perfect. I think only nature is perfect if we would talk about perfection. Nature is
Absolutely.
perfect. This is my opinion about it, but I couldn't see anything else being perfect.
I also think another problem that comes with apologies, with perfectionism is, as we mentioned, your relationship. So not only to yourself and with yourself, but with others, because you kind of set standards to your you set your personal standards, and you just want everyone around you, whether that's at work or family or friends, to meet those standards, and that might cause tension. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Having expectations that are never gonna be met, it brings a lot of anxiety, anger sometimes. Why can't you see, or why can't they do, or all kinds of questions that we ask ourselves. Why can't this be somehow? Because we project things in our mind, expecting them to be perfect, but they aren't.
Which takes us to accepting differences and accepting others. What do you think was your reason for wanting to be a perfectionist? What's the root cause that led you there?
In my case, the root cause was deeply anchored in my childhood. I was one of those kids that was good at doing whatever I was focusing on doing. However, my parents didn't really see my progress. And I'm going to give an example. For example, when I was around 10 or 11, secondary school anyway, I was selected in a choir. And I ended up being the lead voice. This was a huge moment for me, and I was really proud of myself. I started to believe that I'm good at it, because otherwise they wouldn't have selected me for in the first place. And I wouldn't have ended up being a lead voice. But when we were watching a concert or something at TV, my parents were always, look how good that person, kid, whatever is singing. But they never said this to me. This happened in many aspects of my life as a
And that
child.
happens a lot. That happens a
Yeah.
lot in our
And
society.
my standards were like on the roof. I started to compare myself to others. That's another huge point. Instead of focusing on my progress, which was happening, I just couldn't see it. And from a child that was singing in a choir to a 30 years old woman trying to be perfect at everything, it wasn't long. It wasn't long. This perfectionism was stuck with me for a very long time and kept me stuck. I think is the strongest, best word to describe my state. I was stuck.
So family, people
Mm,
around us affect our behavior, as we
yeah,
mentioned before.
yeah. I think,
And again, comparing yourself to others,
mm,
that's a huge one, because you mentioned the effect of social media and the society on
mm,
us and our behaviors on previous episodes. And that takes us back again to
I'm
here,
happy.
where with perfectionism.
I'm happy you mentioned that because nowadays I can see this a lot in the way women perceive themselves, just because someone set a standard about being perfect, posing in certain ways and
Perfect body, perfect
changing,
face, perfect.
yeah, perfect body, face,
And I
way
think
of
it's
talking.
affecting the generation, like our kids' generation, even
Yeah,
more.
the youngest generation
The
is
comparison.
massively impacted. Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
because they strive to reach a certain standard that is not real, and it was probably mentioned thousands of times. There are people that are posing in certain ways to seem perfect. They don't look like that, but the picture
Yeah.
shows them in a certain way. And these kids today want to be that, unfortunately.
It doesn't show their lives, it doesn't show their reality or their childhood, as you mentioned many times about the upbringing, how
Mm,
it affects us. It does A picture or a video does not show who a person actually is.
yeah.
And this is where social media really is disturbing our minds and the minds of our kids, and the mindset.
Mm,
Mhm.
yeah.
So since we've tackled now like the what is perfectionism, the cause of it, and how can we tackle it if it's causing someone a problem? How can we tackle it?
First of all, let me go back a second to the kids and the reason they are so affected by it. And it's important for the
Mm,
parents to be aware of that. I think the children are more affected about this standard setting of our modern society because their character is not yet formed. And
mm,
if we can raise the parents' awareness regarding this, we are on the right track. It's really
absolutely.
important.
And for
Yeah,
parents, this is definitely number one, to tackle that
yeah,
perfectionism for them and for their kids.
yeah,
Set an
yeah,
example.
yeah. Personal
Set
example.
be a role model to your kids. And I think initially start with becoming aware
Mm,
of your maybe if there is a pattern to your behavior or to your thoughts that leads to wanting to be or do something perfectly. What's happening there? Ask yourself, what are the triggers that makes you feel you want to be a perfectionist in that moment or in that scenario? So
yeah, yeah.
just raise your awareness about the topic in different situations and assess it. Take it from there.
Yeah, yeah, I think raising awareness, as you said, is a first major step towards overcoming perfectionism. Because if you're not aware
Absolutely.
that you're setting those standards or you are imposing them on yourself, you can't do really anything about it.
Anything.
And a second
Absolutely.
one would be to embrace that imperfection, to normalize it as a human experience.
Mm.
What is perfect? If you wait for the perfect person, for example, what is the perfect person? There's no such thing. Whatever is good for you might not be good for me, so you don't look for the perfect person, you look for what's good for you.
Absolutely. And that brings me to self-compassion. So if you've done something that's not perfect, that's not the 100% that you're looking for, it's okay, accept it, learn from it, and make progress in it. My son told me yesterday, I was telling him, come on, we need to do your spellings, perfect, practice makes perfect. And he said, no, mommy, practice makes progress. And I obviously froze because
Wise kid.
he's 7.
Wise kid.
And I was like, you're actually correct. Yeah. If I'm looking, things like that affect, this is where role model comes, affects their behavior and the language, the words we use. So practice makes progress. Yes, with self-compassion, treat failure as learning. Forgive yourself if you've done something not up to the standards all the time.
What are standards? Come on. Who said
your
them?
Why?
Exactly. Why was the purpose of that? And since you mentioned standards, and our tendency to compare ourselves to others, why not comparing ourselves to our old version, or to the old version of ourselves? This is how we see progress. If I'm gonna compare myself to a 10-year ago old version of myself, of course I'm gonna see progress. But if I'm gonna compare myself with, I don't know, we started this podcast, for example. What if we started comparing our podcast with Tony Robbins' podcast?
Oh, you're being bad still.
What's the point of doing it even? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's wrong, because nobody starts with being good at something. And I think I mentioned this before. Imagine a toddler starting walking. What if they would judge themselves based on their first attempt? Would they ever walk?
One step at a time.
Yeah.
And in coaching, we say that the learning happens between the session, isn't it? So the client is not the same person as last week, because the learning and the change and the progress happens in between the sessions. And same with us, like we are not the same person as yesterday.
Yeah.
So definitely you've learned something, you've heard something that stuck to your mind. So there is progress, but you might not be able to see it because you're focusing on the people around you, not focusing on yourself.
Yeah. And I would add to what you just said, this focus on progress. Celebrate achievements. Celebrate them. Get in the habit of noticing them and celebrate them. And this way they are going to be embedded in your mind, and you will know consciously, I'm better than I was yesterday. And another one would be learn from mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. I'm gonna watch this video. I'm gonna watch this video and notice my speaking mistakes. Is this going to stop me from recording the next one?
This is why we focus on reflection as well in coaching, as coaches, reflecting with the clients and as coaches. And I think everyone should just use that reflection time for growth.
Yeah.
I want to ask you 2 questions. I can't help but ask you. How do you celebrate wins?
I think this depends on everyone. There are people that are feeling like doing something really special or big, not special.
No,
Everything
you
is special.
personally.
But me personally, to be honest, I like to disconnect. That's my way of celebrating. Disconnect. And when I say disconnect, I mean from everything. And lately from social media, from screen time. I just disconnect. If the weather is okay, I like to go out, listen to the birds singing, watch the sky and the clouds moving, being mindful, basically, feel the breeze on my skin, notice the way I feel in my mind, in my body, it's a thing that I've discovered recently. And it became a way of celebrating. Every time I do something, I feel like I need to disconnect now and just enjoy the moment, stay in the moment. It's very
I like to
accessible.
celebrate by telling someone close, like a friend or my husband, what had happened. I feel like when I say it out loud, it's embedded in my brain and it's actually happened.
Yeah, it becomes
Yeah.
reality. Once we spell
Exactly.
words or write them down, they transform from a thought into a reality. It's a good technique.
And my second question to you is, as a old perfectionist, what would you, I know you don't like to give advice, but what one tip would you give our listeners how to overcome it? What have you tried?
I've heard something once and it got stuck in my head, and I'm gonna repeat it every time I have the chance. An imperfect action is better than a perfect inaction. This defines
so
progress.
powerful.
And the more I'm saying this to myself, an imperfect action is better than a perfect inaction, I can see myself moving forward. Because, as I mentioned earlier, as an old perfectionist, I was so stuck. I was so stuck. I was so preventing myself to achieve my dreams because I dream big. I'm that type. But I couldn't take a step towards my dreams because it wasn't perfect. It was painful. It was painful, but not anymore. So when it comes to overcoming, because this was your question, the more mindful you are about perfection being an ideal concept, not a reality, the more you're going to be prone to just move. Look at how you were yesterday. Compare yourself to an old version of yourself who couldn't do something. Even if you focus on a problem that you overcome. People don't like this word problem, but it's a part of life.
It's life.
If you overcome that problem, you're stronger than you were before facing it. So
I'll tell you a story similar to overcoming the barrier of doing something perfect. I'm an introvert, like I'm not usually on social media, and my accounts are all private and I don't share much, blah blah blah. But when it comes to business, I had to have my business account and I have to show my face, and that took me, my first video only took 32 attempts. Only 32 attempts to record a minute or less even video. And because I wanted it perfect, I want to look at the camera perfectly, I want to have the perfect smile, have the perfect outfit, perfect hair, you name it, all of it. Hence the 32
sounds familiar.
32 attempts. And I think that's just it could be a common topic with people who want to post something. This is why I thought to mention it. But then I thought the actual barrier here was judgment. I am judging myself too much, and that has to step aside. And I'm not going to compare myself, as you said, with someone who's professional, who's done it all their life, who done it comfortably. So I've just posted it. And the progress happened here. From 32 attempts, it took me to 10. Until yesterday, I'm very proud to share 0 attempts. I've just videoed it one. And because I thought, what's the worst case scenario here? I'm just wasting time.
Yeah.
Back to time. I'm wasting time recording many times, and I'm wasting time where I could have taken 32 videos, different topics, not 32 attempts of the same topic.
Yeah. And you also get frustrated about it. Come on. I mean,
absolutely.
I remember when I started, because you mentioned that, I was so self-aware regarding the way I speak. And I realized 2 things in time. First of all, I don't really care how I speak because I'm not only speaking English, obviously. I speak more than 2 languages. That's one aspect. The second one, I'm more interested in the message I'm sending.
Absolutely.
And how is my message going to impact and reach people? And how my grammar is perfect or imperfect, or doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And if I would compare myself with someone that does that all their life, why not comparing myself with that someone when they started? Were they perfect? No, they weren't.
When the why is big, why you're doing the something, it is just automatically overpowers the anything else, like all the accessories that come with it.
Yeah.
So focus on your why. So I think in summary, we've covered what perfectionism is, how it could benefit and also hinder you. So look for triggers, look for what patterns are causing perfectionism in you to just shine and rise. And try to avoid these. Have self-awareness, self-compassion, and just be gentle. Take your time. Practice makes progress.
Yeah, and also seek support if you want to get better at something. Because sometimes you can do it by yourself, but sometimes you need someone to help you in your journey. Seek support. This is not a weakness. That's a strength. To accept the fact that you need support is not a weakness. So
absolutely, yeah. Asking for help is one thing, but accepting is also another thing.
Yeah.
If you need anyone to chat to, no obligations. Raluca and I are here. Have a chat if you wanted to explore further the perfectionist in you. We look forward to hearing from you soon.
Yeah, and before closing, I would like to remind our audience the way the films are made. How many times a scene is recorded? Think about that. And see you next time. Thank you for being here with us. Don't forget to subscribe and like our videos. And you can find us on YouTube, Spotify. You have our links.
And see you next time.
See you. Bye-bye.